This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
Apple Gift Card is a practical gift that unlocks a world of entertainment and fun. You can send it via email or give a physical card to your loved ones. Your friends and family can spend it on their favorite Apple services, including Apple subscriptions. Apple Gift Card can be used to buy all things Apple: products, accessories, apps, games, movies, TV shows, iCloud Plus, and more. Visit apple.com for details and to send Apple Gift Cards to your friends and family this holiday season.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
All right, welcome to the Blue Turf, or at least I think that's what we're going to call it for the moment. If we change it later, we'll let you know. This is Thad Bell. I write for and photograph and do a lot of other things for thebluetestament.com. With me, I have Erik. Tell everybody about yourself, but like anybody doesn't already know you, Erik.
Oh, there's a lot of people who don't know me, Thad. So my name's Erik Bergrud. I am about to start my 4th season as color commentator for the Kansas City Comets in the Major Arena Soccer League. I also announce college soccer primarily at Park University, where I've been the voice of Park Pirates Soccer since 2014. And my day job, I'm Chief Strategic Communications Officer here at Park.
Yeah, and I think you probably left out. You dabble in a lot of other color calling for different events too, don't you?
Oh, wow. So next week I'll be announcing Christmas on the River in Parkville. I'll be doing another holiday event in Parkville and then other duties as assigned. And I had a great experience this past week, and I was invited to announce 2 NAIA second round games in Columbia, Missouri. And that was a nice change of pace for me too, doing both public address and play-by-play simultaneously for both matches.
Yeah, that's got to be a challenge. All right, so we're recording the week before the Comets open up the MASL season, and I know neither one of us has a ton of time because we're going between many things, including World Cup games. So let's dive right in. I know you keep up on everything probably better than I do, but coming into the new season, the MASL has a new format to Eastern and Western Conference. In the West, Chihuahua, Dallas, Empire, which used to be Ontario, right? Mesquite, yep. Monterey, San Diego, Tacoma. In the East, Baltimore, Florida, Harrisburg, Kansas City, Milwaukee, the team across the state that kind of claims they're St. Louis, even though they're not, and Utica City. So I just throw in a little shade at St. Louis for fun, even though I'm from St. Louis originally. Is there any other changes that you know of that you can talk about? Or
sure, I think fans are going to notice this coming Saturday at Cable Dom Arena 2 very significant changes on the field. First, video replay. So the league had experiment is a interesting term. Let's just say that the league had implemented it for the playoffs the last 2 seasons. they're bringing it into the regular season. So we're going to see video replay all the way through in the 22-23 MASL season. The other thing I know we'll see in Kansas City, I'm not so sure whether we'll see it in other markets, is the referees are going to be mic'd up. So just as you hear in other leagues, when officials announce fouls, you'll hear it at Cable Don Marino, which will be interesting too.
Oh no, I'm actually looking forward to that, because there's been a lot of times I'm like, okay, what were they actually calling? Because not that I'm perfect, but sometimes I did not see what that referee call was. I'm trying to play it nice. That's gonna be I do think that'll be a big fan, or a big fan favorite. That's not the right way to say it, but I think fans will really appreciate that.
I think they will too, and I think on video replay. So we've already seen in the World Cup questions about how VAR is implemented, and I would love to tell you that there's a clear parallel circumstances in the indoor game as the outdoor game in terms of how and when it's going to be applied, but I can't. And so I was actually talking with an MASL official in Colombia who will be there Saturday night, and they're still trying to figure out some of the nuances of video review. None of these systems are perfect. You hear fans complaining in the NFL.
One thing that
but here's what we are. The fans have asked for it. The players have asked for it. The coaches have asked for it.
They will not
and
have
really
to
the referees have asked for
be
it as well,
looking
too,
at,
just to make
whether
sure
there was a toe over a
call gets done
line to
right.
determine
But
an
like
offside.
any
So, I mean, some
system,
of that has
to
been
expect
so
perfection,
controversial in that, there was a half of a foot, not a full, like not a measuring thing, just like, 3 inches of a toes over the line past a defender or something. So that's off the table. So now it's just like fouls, elbows.
Sure. Well, so my job in high school was I was one of those kids who was a linesman. Now you would call it an AR all the way through high school, and that's how I paid for my indoor soccer season tickets when I was a high school senior. I'm a little bit old school, where mistakes happen, trust the referees, and if we're getting into that much discrepancy in whether a toe over an electronic line is going to make the difference. The fans asked for this, so the fans. I've seen lots of commentary on social media, but ultimately fans asked for this system, and we'll see how fans respond to the video review taking place in MASL this season.
Yeah, I mean, I do think overall they'll like it, except that that just like any other human being activity, they will complain about it. So it's just the way it will be.
Well, and they'll hear from me on broadcast, because I have no qualms of pointing out hypocrisy whenever it's presented to me, either during a game or before or after.
No, and actually I appreciate both you and Nick and how you call games. That's you root for the home team, obviously, but you also try to keep it pretty honest, and you'll say, yeah, that was a foul or that wasn't a foul. And so that's why I think you guys are the best announcers in MASL, at least. So
well, I appreciate that Nick Vasso started doing this in 1996, so I never claimed to be a longtime announcer. I'm a longtime fan, has been soccer player, but really passionate about soccer and extremely passionate about the indoor game. And we see ourselves in sort of an interesting position in this league, in that there are really no home broadcasts from our perspective. The league uses broadcasts produced by each team to share with a national and now with teams in Mexico, an international audience. So we understand we have fans not only of both teams watching, but neutrals as well. And we try to call a game with those audiences in mind.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think in a future episode, we'll maybe pull Nick on and we'll do a dive into what it takes to do a game, maybe.
You'll learn a lot from him, I guarantee it.
That's I always love watching behind the scenes stuff, or seeing how that works. And recently saw one from the NHL where somebody caught they put up the wrong thing on the feed, and what the broadcasters were seeing on their screens versus what you were seeing on your screen, and it was really interesting because they had much more information on that screen than what we did. So,
well, I think what's a challenge for us, we take this very seriously, our responsibility to share our perspectives, what we see, what we've studied with the fans. And, sometimes things don't go the way we expect, and we have to do our best, but Nick and I intend to be fan friendly first. And we also understand that not every MASL fan has the same years of understanding of the game. And so you're not going to hear what I would call a hyper technical broadcast from us. You see that in a lot of the U.S. outdoor soccer commentary, what I would call hyper technical, and assuming that all fans understand the nuances of a high press versus a low block, etc. That's not the way we call our games.
Cool. Moving on a little bit, because like I said, we'll do at least one episode on how you guys do that in the future. But Comets have brought back a lot of the normal faces, but there are a few new ones. They've signed 2 goalies, Steven Takeski and Sway Mazan. I'm terrible with pronunciations. And then a field player, Chase Bromstead, who I've seen him play with. Well, I've seen him and Steven Takeski play with Sporting KC Academy quite a few times. They both went off to college and had really great college careers. Sway Mazan, he played with St. Louis last year. I think probably 10 games.
Orlando too.
Yep, in Orlando a couple years before that. So he's got some indoor experience. So Neto's, I would say, the clear number 1 in goal. But without Lou around this year, because I think he's retired for the moment. And I always say for the moment because you never know when people come back. But that's 2 pretty good keepers. Sway already knows the indoor game. Takeski is a really good outdoor goalie who I've seen in practice, and he's made some clear rookie indoor guy mistakes in practice, but he's also made some really good saves. Any comments on those guys?
So first of all, Neto among the top goalkeepers in the league. What we're going to witness on Saturday is a contrast in styles. Both Brazilian goalkeepers, both good with their feet, but Paulo, back from his knee injury, plays a different game, and we can talk about a rule change last year may be coming into effect to benefit St. Louis this year. We can talk about that a little bit later. Takeski, goalkeeper coaches love him. They wanted him signed, both Alan Mayer and Kenny Mayer, and it's going to take him time to adapt, as you've witnessed in practice that. And so you have Sway in, who played, he was in the shuffle of rotating goalies, I guess you want to call it that, for the ambush last year when Paulo went out. Paulo, top class goalkeeper for the ambush. They made do with a collection of goalkeepers, and Pollo Cortez, who really impressed me last year, went back to Mesquite, and he'll be the starting goalkeeper for Mesquite. And so for the Comets to grab Sway, I think that was a great pickup. And the ambush, they're betting on Paulo being healthy again this year.
Yeah, he's sometimes annoying to be a fan of the other team, but he's a really good keeper. Absolutely. Have you gotten to see any of play from Chase yet? When I've went to practice, I've not seen him, at least for the Comets practice.
So when I was there watching inter-squad scrimmage, he was on the bench. In fact, it was right before the Comets officially announced his signing. Really well thought of player going through the Sporting KC Academy ranks, and was a stud. To quote Brian Budzinski, who likes to use that term a lot, was a stud at the University of Tulsa. Had time with multiple teams here in Kansas City. And I think, again, to channel Brian Budzinski, it usually takes players 3 full years to fully adjust from the outdoor game to the indoor game. So whether you're talking about a goalkeeper or a field player, I wouldn't put too much pressure on them yet. And I think the system is in place for players to elevate their game and move forward. And I think if you look at the Comets roster, Coach Leo Gibson, assistant coach Stefan Stokic, and Brian Budzinski, they feel like they have a nucleus of a strong team. And in some ways, this is an echo of that team in the 2010s that won a MISL championship. They believe that they have the nucleus of a team that can contend year in and year out. And that's why I think you didn't see them go deep into the free agent market like some other MASL teams did as well.
Yeah, I agree. I watched both of those scrimmages, or a good chunk of both of those scrimmages last week, and the first one was at a really high level, and I was walking out there like, they look like they're season ready. And then the second one, because they played on Tuesday and I think Friday, and then that second one looked more like a midseason level one because they really ramped it up. I think they got some comments that they weren't going hard enough, and on Friday they were really going at it. It was a really high quality game. I mean, that's what you would want to see in a regular season game. The first one, it was really close going into the fourth quarter, and then one team kind of ran away with it. So I think it was like 10-5 or 9-5 or something like that at the end. But the other one, it went down to the wire where it was 5-4 in the fourth quarter. That's how it finished. And they were, full six attacker. In both of those, they had refs, the clocks, they had everything going just like it was a real game. And, it was really entertaining, but it just showed that they're really close at this point.
So when Vlatko Andonovski was then the Missouri Comets head coach, he believed in a system where you brought players in a couple games or a couple days into the summer, and you work your way into preseason, and that's something that Leo Gibson has adopted in his role. And so I think you'll see the Comets maybe being a step ahead of other teams in terms of how much time they practice. Some other teams have barely had a week or two, in some cases 3, to gel as a unit, and the Comets were already there. That being said, there is no guarantee anytime the Comets go into the family arena, and it seems in recent years it's been challenging for the Comets to get a result there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because like some of those players have done kick arounds from like August, I think. They just have kick arounds, have fun. They go scrimmage a little bit. But then it just gets more ramped up, more days a week, and then just gets more and more serious. And so, yeah, some of those players have really been practicing together since August. Some of them have come in more recently, but that's also a lot of the more veteran ones too. So, speaking of this coming season and young players, do you see some breakout players? I know I'll tell you mine, but I want you to go first.
Well, let me offer you with a caveat that not just for the Comets, but across the league, visa issues once again look like they're going to surface. I think that if his visa issues get settled once and for all, Benji Monreal is poised to be a star player in this league, not just a rookie of the year, and he'd be eligible to be rookie of the year just because he got limited time. But I think you saw with what they call that worldie goal that he scored against Dallas in last year's opening round playoff match here at Cable Dahmer Arena. He's poised for stardom. And so when he's on the field, Comets are a great team. I think the challenge for them, and they saw that in the playoffs when he wasn't on the field, they're not quite in fourth gear the way they are when he's there. And perhaps you could argue they're in fifth gear when he's there. So he would be my breakout young player. How about you, Thad?
Oh, he's definitely there. And just a clarifying moment about the visas. They had his visa last year, but the league changed the type of visa at the league meetings a month ago or whatever it was. And so that required them to go again to get a different visa. And I do believe that he will get it soon this season. It's just whether it's for the first games or by the next, they'll have a week break or something, I believe, between the first 2 games before they start playing again. And so I'm pretty sure he'll have it by then, but when I say that, I know nothing about the legal immigration status.
So what I would encourage Comets fans, anybody listening, if you go to the MASL website, which is maslsoccer.com, click on the individual team pages. And if you look at the roster, scroll down to see inactive players, you're probably seeing a combination of 2 things in the inactive list. People who are legitimately hurt, and St. Louis has that challenge right now, and people with visa problems. And yep. St. Louis also has that challenge. Kansas City has some challenges too. And so you can get a sense of what to expect coming into opening weekend as the Comets travel to St. Charles on Friday and then back here on Saturday. And we're going to be keeping a close eye in the lead up to Saturday night's match at Cable Dahmer Arena, whether any visa situations change for individual players.
Yeah, but some of the I completely agree on Benji because he made such a good impact in the limited games last year. So, but the other two that I'm looking at is Junior Kazim and Lalo. Both of those
So let's
players.
talk about both. Let's talk about both of them. Junior, again, I'm not sure about his visa situation, and we'll see about that. So another one of these, it seems like countless university players who played college soccer in Missouri or Kansas, and Kazim fits that mode. He was a striker, a 9 for Central Methodist University, an indoor. He's the type of guy in the box that just battles for the loose ball, and he has a nose for the net, as they say. And Lalo in a different mode. This is somebody that Brian Bazitsky told me about, was raving about last year, and Leo Gibson's high on him. Is somebody who grew up playing in the youth ranks in Missouri, and they've identified him as a potential breakout player. I think what's going to be interesting, Thad, in an MASL season, you have a combination of injuries. You have a combination of sometimes back-to-back matches where you play on a Saturday and then a Sunday, or a Friday and a Saturday, and a lot of players will get time. And for Lalo, I think it's going to be an opportunity here for him to say, Coach Gibson, I dare you to take me out of the lineup because I'm going to prove to you that I deserve a regular shift.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. With Lalo, he looked really good in the first scrimmage. He wasn't in the second scrimmage, but he looked just energetic and everywhere and controlling the ball well and doing all those things that he needed to do. Junior, one of the things I described him when I was talking to a friend was that he was just vicious in the box. I don't think vicious is probably the right term, but he was so strong, and like any loose ball in there, he was getting to it. In between the boxes, I will say he needs to work on that game. If he had a breakaway, he was pretty good, but he was not combining well yet. And I talked to him after one of the practices, and he said, "Yep, I need to work on that, and I'm still learning where to run and all that stuff." But when I said something about him being vicious in the box, he kind of smiled, like, "Yeah." So
I think that if you score a lot of goals, deficiencies in your game somehow get overlooked. So there historically are goal scorers in the indoor game who maybe weren't the best two-way players,
yep.
who scored so many goals that you can overlook. Do they actually come back on defend? How do they do in transition? And time will tell. Junior came in really late in last season, so he hasn't even had a full season of experience. And so in a way, this is sort of his +1 rookie year. And again, the Comets believe they have the nucleus as something special. And I guess time will tell to see how this group gels and what chemistry they have as they try to make a deeper push into the playoffs this season.
And all three of those players we mentioned, Junior, Lalo, and Benji, are all eligible for Rookie of the Year. So that might actually hurt them a little bit, having three guys who could all break out, or maybe it's only two of them, but still, it's always that conflict of who gets those votes. All right, so like we mentioned, they had two scrimmages this last week, really high level, and it's all in preparation for playing St. Louis this coming weekend. On Friday, they're in St. Louis, and then Saturday they come back to Kansas City. We talked about, we were going to talk about St. Louis a little bit more. What can you tell me about St. Louis and what their strengths are at this point?
So St. Louis last year, I think it's safe to say, had a couple different challenges. Injury bug for sure, and Paulo being one of several players who were either out a good part of the season or all the season. So they were constantly trying to regroup. They went through a coaching change last year, and that created some challenges. And ultimately, they wound up, what's the expression, righted the ship as they headed to the playoffs under head coach Jeff Locker. But they lose their top goal scorer, Mo NDI, to Empire, free agent trade. I'm not sure which way you call it, but he's gone. And somebody who always seems to have the Comets number, JT Thomas out with an injury. And so I think the question is where the goal's going to come from. And so let me offer you a couple options here. Tony Walls, Comets have played against him on multiple teams for years. He scored the game winner last year. I was actually at the Family Arena last January, where Kansas City looked like they had the game won, and St. Louis battle back, and Tony Walls was there. You have Otto Yahic, who just got some time with the U.S. futsal team. Typical St. Louis guy, homegrown kid, makes good plays pro there, and I expect to see him scoring more goals this year, as well as Robert Cristo, who was one of the greats in SLU soccer. But here's the wild card for you, Thad. Number 9, Kevin Ellis. And that name should ring a bell to a lot of Kansas City fans, not just from his time with the Comets, but previously with Sporting Kansas City. How is he going to fit in with this team? What does that look like? I think it's going to be interesting to see how he makes his stamp, not just this weekend in a back-to-back series, but for the season moving on. Kevin Ellis can play multiple positions. He's listed as a forward. I believe when the Comets first signed him, he might have been listed as a defender, but we saw him play like a utility player indoor. He can play defender, he can play midfielder, he can play forward. I don't recall ever seeing him play 6 attacker, but I'm sure he could do it as well.
Yep.
Those are where the goals you would expect to see many of them coming from. I think that the challenge there is who's going to be setting the identity of that team this year. And where I think they're going to need some serious leadership is going to be all the way in the back. Fans either enjoy when I talk about goalkeeping or laugh when I talk about goalkeeping. But Paulo, they changed the goalkeeper rule, the pass back rule last year that now allows goalkeepers to advance the ball over the midfield line in all 4 quarters. And we saw in previous years, Paulo in the 4th quarter would become like the 6th attacker for the ambush. What's to prevent him from playing almost a quasi 6th attacker role for the ambush in all 4 quarters now? And we didn't get to see it last year because he was out all year. That for me is what I'm going to watch, not just this weekend, but throughout the year. To what extent does Paulo become that 6th option and maybe scores more than just 1 or 2 goals this season?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And honestly, I've always loved that type of play from keepers. I mean, even going back to old MLS days, Jorge Campos, he'd drop the ball, run out of the box, go up, make the final pass, or maybe even take the shot, and that's an outdoor. But we've seen that from indoor keepers before, especially in the 4th quarter. But it should be entertaining. It's also dangerous because obviously, you don't have a keeper back there all the time. A long shot could get in, or you're slightly more likely to get run into the board somewhere. So it's a high risk, high reward type of style.
But I wouldn't see them doing it for all 4 quarters. It's situational. I think there's situations, perhaps on corner kicks, perhaps on set pieces, where it would make sense for Paulo to come up the field. And he's an accurate shooter. It's not like a goalkeeper who's just flailing out there. This is somebody who can legitimately score goals. And if I were coaching St. Louis, I would be trying to maximize the situations where he gets the ball on his feet in attacking area.
Oh, absolutely. Going back to Kevin Ellis for a second, he has the potential to be one of the very top players in the league. We saw that with Kansas City, but injuries and I'll just say some other issues that ended up taking him away from Kansas City. I don't know. I wonder, and I wish him well, because he's been a good player for Kansas City for a long time at different times. So I wish him well, but I just wonder how long he will be at a high level for St. Louis. And I'm not trying to speculate in any wrong way, so I try and be careful of how I say that. So it will definitely benefit St. Louis that he will be there for the opening weekend.
I think I have all sorts of questions about this St. Louis team, and not questions in a negative way, just questions who's going to step forward, because they have several quality players I haven't even mentioned. William Eskay always impresses me. He's gotten received some time with U.S. futsal team as well. They have quality with Sam Guernsey, Jeff Michaud. It's just what's going to bring this team together. And last year they had that big striker in Mo Ndiaye, and you could just see that goals were going to come through him. I think it's going to be interesting to see what does it look like in 22-23, and will this be a team that comes together, and maybe not one person leading the team in scoring, but multiple players getting their share, getting their chunks of goals. And in some ways, that's a more rewarding system where you don't have to rely on one person, because what happens in this league when there's one target, they become targeted by the other defenders, and ultimately you start seeing coaches target defend those leading goal scorers, and we've seen it happen to Kansas City's goal scorers. We've seen it happen to players like Frank Taillou as well. And so perhaps St. Louis has an opportunity here to create a new team identity and see goals coming from across the lineup.
Yeah, as much as I don't want to root for the ambush, it's good for the league and for the Comets to have a good opponent over there, and having an entertaining style will actually help them bring in even more fans. Coming back to the Comets for the moment, though, with this being our first one in preseason conversation, who do you see is going to be the top goal scorer or two for the Comets?
Well, I'm not a betting person, Thad.
Yeah.
I'll give predictions as long as I don't have to put money on it. But number 26 for me, I think is who I would look to first. And so the Comets this year, to help the announcers, had the players introduce themselves on audio, and so that way Nick Vassos and I, and hopefully other announcers, can practice. Number 26, we've been calling him Rion Marquez, but he goes by Marks, and nobody ever corrected this over the years. So let's call him Rion for now. Target forward, big presence, can score with his back against the goal, can score out wide. I think that's who I would look for as the logical person, particularly since there have been changes in that front. We still don't know what number 14, whether there will be a number 14 on the field this year, and that may be a next episode conversation. But I'd say there's two other places where the goals are going to come from. In the midfield, you talked about 3 Rookie of the Year candidates this year potentially for the Comets. How about a previous Rookie of the Year in Lucas Sosa? Lucas Sosa, I think, has an opportunity to score a lot of goals, get a lot of assists this year. And finally healthy. He was battling with injuries all last year. Big Mike Da Silva. I think if the Comets could have 2 pure big target players, that's going to create some mismatches. There's going to create some frustrations for other coaches to decide, where do we put our top man marking defender? Do we put him on 26? Do we put him on 18? If Da Silva can step up, that creates opportunities, I think, as well for Rion on that other ship.
Yeah, I think, again, we're in agreement on a lot of these, although I might actually go with Da Silva over Marks. Is it
Marks? Yep.
I'll have to start calling him that. I did talk to Da Silva after a practice, and he kind of explained some of the injury woes he had last year, but he said he was back feeling as good as he was the first year he's with the Comets during the COVID year, when he looked so good, just one of the top 10 players in the league kind of thing.
I thought he was great on that first year on special teams too, and I think that's something that there's some intangibles that players bring is not just in the run of play, but who are you going to go to? It's kind of like the running line between Nick Vassos and me. Who's going to be the hero? So who's going to be the hero on the penalty kill, lovingly called the Rat Patrol by longtime announcer Ed Bishop, and who's going to be the hero on the power play? Because sometimes, particularly when you start heading toward the playoffs, it's, do you defend when you need to defend, and do you find a goal when you're up a player? Who's going to be able to do that? And something Da Silva has impressed me on is his tenacity on special teams. There are other players there, Lucas Sosa being one of them. Somebody we haven't talked about at all yet, who was killer on special teams last year, was John Sosa, who was just tremendous on the power play. Everybody has a role on this team, Thad. Everybody needs to step up. and we'll see. I think Monterey, if you want to put me on the spot, they would be my pick to win the Western Division. They have former Liga MX players on their roster. The question for them is, how quickly will that team gel in competition? Kansas City and Florida seem to be the top two teams in the East. And this past season, Florida knocked out Kansas City in the playoffs. So Kansas City has a lot to play for as they head into 22-23.
Yeah, and then talking about John Sosa, he's just the epitome of the wily veteran at this point, knowing when to do things, where to play the ball. Saw a couple of good goals from him and off of set pieces or off of restarts in those two scrimmages. He's just knows the game so well at this point. And Leo, I bet we see him on the field at some point this year, whether it's a lot or a little, which I think is going to be probably a lot less than we did last year, because they have young players that are that need to grow, and he'll get those guys a chance. Another guy that I'll say has impressed me, at least at sometimes in practices, is Felipe Abreu, because he came in, got some injuries, didn't, lots of different things going on there, but when he's healthy, he looks really good.
He looked good when we saw him last year. Speaking of looking good, I can't say enough about the commitment to his game that James Togba has. And
yes,
so I need to go listen to archived matches last year. I don't know if I said something about him being a left-footed player, but he posted a video on Instagram that shows him with his left and his right. And I know that he can kick and shoot and defend and do everything. And so he's another one who could have a breakout year. Comets are if the injuries don't affect them, they're stacked on defense this year too, and have several players, two-way players, not just Togba, but Ray Lee. Ray Lee with that left foot, put him on that yellow line. Watch out.
And yet another player we haven't mentioned that really deserves mentioning is Lucia.
Oh, we haven't even talked about him. And so the other thing that Tetsane brings is, I think, to be fair, John Sosa would agree that he's not the fastest player in the MASL. And so if you can pair him with somebody who can cover, that gives Sosa an opportunity to attack a little bit more from defense and not have to worry about rushing back if the Comets lose the ball. And so it's somebody who made a run for Rookie of the Year last year, Tetsane. Not only does he show that he can defend, but some of the goals he scored last year were superb. And I expect him to even step up his game a little bit more this season.
And we only have a couple minutes left before we have to sign off. But one more player I'm going to throw out there is Milos Vucic. Again, I'm probably saying it wrong, but
Vucic. Go to YouTube, type in the name Milos Vucic, and check out some of his goals. Just unbelievable. And I think with him, he's another one of those players. We'll see when his visa situation stabilizes. If you watched his game last year, it's like you were mentioning earlier with Junior, in terms of trying to figure out what's my place between the yellow line and the yellow line, trying to find positioning. We definitely know he can score. It's just being able to understand how the indoor game is different than the outdoor game, how to fit in on the transition. But his ability to change a game, there's no doubt about it.
And he's played at one of the highest levels in outdoor of probably anybody in the league.
Champions League level.
Yeah. And again, in the scrimmages, I don't want to give away too much, and because it was, the Comet split, but I saw him on some of the special teams, and I could see him breaking into those ranks, at least at different parts this year. But just as he learns that game, I think he will be extremely dangerous and good for the Comets. All right, so we have about a minute before we have to get off of here. So I just want to thank you for coming on with me. I hope that we can get this on a fairly regular basis going forward. Hopefully you enjoyed talking more Comets.
Oh, absolutely. It's a cliche to say that you're excited about the upcoming season. I'm really excited about this season. I think there's a lot for Comets fans to look forward to. And my only caveat is don't read too much in the opening weekend. I think it's going to take a few games for all teams in this league to figure out where they are. But come the end of the season and come the playoffs, I expect the Comets to be there.
Cool. Yeah, me too. I expect them to make the playoffs for sure. All right. So thank you for joining. Thank everybody who listens, and we're out.